The loudest plane ever made was the Thunder Screech. And the Thunder Screech was supposed to be a plane that was supposed to go near supersonic speeds. It was supposed to be a easier way to combat jet fighters because the US needed a plane that would take off that would take off with the shortness of a propeller plane, but that would have the speed of a jet plane. And jets were still very rudimentary. And one of the planes that they wanted to make was uh, a Thunder Screech. And thanks to real engineering, you guys can watch the video and see how all that works. Arsenal X actually found a way to make this back in World War I, and this was one of the reasons why you would see reports of horrifying sounds on a battlefield or over certain towns, and then suddenly people disappearing or crashing. In fact, Arsenal X knows how to weaponize sound, and it means that they can attack from anywhere and everywhere, and no matter what precautions you have, you won't be able to withstand it. It's amazing, actually. Arsenal X found a way to actually put two engines facing opposite of each other, and then propellers both counteracting each other, so that way the plane would have a very easy and stable flight. Arsenal X was actually the precursors to the Thunder Screech, and they made their own variant, which was actually extremely effective. Remember, guys, Arsenal X is supposed to be eons ahead of the rest of the world, so they have stuff far before other people do. Like, back in the 1700s when they were using maps, Arsenal X would already have GPS. Like, that is like how advanced they are. They were able to get that plane up to almost 750 miles per hour without hindrance. With the powerful engines With the powerful engines that they were using on an earlier variant of jet technology, this allowed the aircraft to be unimaginably powerful, and in World War One, both in World War One and World War Two. It was said that by World War Two, they were capable of getting the plane to almost Mach 2 using a specialized hybrid hyperjet engine combo, a super advanced and semi-unstable variant of supersonic flight. It worked and was super effective, but very scary. It was said that the plane would be able to morph mid-air and would take about a minute to activate supersonic mode. You could feel all the different pieces of the plane moving around and switching into different places, much like the Tomcat with its movable wings. Then you were capable of changing the power of the engines into this overpowered hyperjet system, that this would allow you to almost double your speed. This allowed the plane to reach almost 60,000 feet with no trouble whatsoever, and was said to terrorize the skies for quite a long time. This was the first plane in the 1930s to use a backward swept wing design, and allowed the plane to be ridiculously fast and capable of crazy maneuvering. By the end of World War II, they were capable of making the plane go from subsonic to supersonic within seconds, because of massive jumps in technology and development within these few years. Arsenal X actually stole a couple of the German designs, which you guys can understand why nobody else understands them, because Arsenal X made sure that nobody else could get their hands on the German designs, like the levitation bell or other wonder weapons of World War II, Wunderwaffe. Arsenal X is the reason why these horrifying technologies are not everywhere now. In fact, Arsenal X actually stole this technology for themselves, and that is one of the reasons why they are eons ahead of the rest of the world, because they know that evil will never stop, and they need to be as far ahead as possible. It was actually said that the sound of the aircraft was more than enough to cause enemies to just scatter, because they knew that the unknown enemy was going to punish them. These crafts were incredibly durable and extremely maneuverable and were capable of outperforming any and all enemies. Even Hitler's uh, Even Hitler's rocket planes were no match for this terrifying beast of a plane. In fact, Arsenal X actually found a way to make the plane hostile and deadly even when all its ammunition and ordnance has been expended. Because of the very powerful nature of this terrifying beast, they found ways to actually use the sound waves and reverberations of the air to pummel the enemy with directional punishment. In fact, if this plane flies over you within 30 feet, it can knock over light vehicles, soldiers, and cause mayhem on the battlefield. The aircraft was also so incredibly loud that even after it used all of its ammunition, it would fly low over the battlefield and use the shock waves of its engines and propellers to cause the enemy much hindrance. In fact, it was said that that Germany and the Soviets, depending on what they were doing, had reports that they could not communicate with other forces because of this hypervelocity aircraft that they could not touch. This plane was capable of being able to function in any and all weathers, and was said to even be able to penetrate hurricanes and tornadoes because of its robust and powerful engines. It could actually fly against the wind of a tornado and be completely fine because if it entered a tailspin, it would have specialized maneuvering thrusters or fins that would allow it to point at the ground, or it could point up at the sky and overdrive its engines to the point where it would stop itself from falling and hover in mid-place. It would even be able to go back upward very, very quickly. It was said that the pilot would undergo about 4 plus G's of force through the process of restabilization because of the intense power of the engines. In fact, this plane was capable of being launched vertically or horizontally, and was even capable of being able to be landed horizontally or vertically because of its unique design. Because of the propellers, it would be able to actually use the forward propeller to stabilize itself from the front and the backward propeller to give itself thrust, and would also use specialized fins along the body of the craft to keep it vertical, so that way it could land on a specialized landing mount. So pretty much what happened is that it had maneuvering fins and canards that would catch the wind from these hypervelocity propellers, allowing the aircraft to actually be able to move itself by just the wind itself from the propellers. This craft was something like beyond science fiction. It's phenomenal, and its abilities would outperform many aircraft even to this day. Arsenal X, because of the special design of these craft, Arsenal X was actually able to carry almost 100 of these on an aircraft carrier and launch them incredibly quick. So you would have them launch in pairs, and you could get all of them up in the air within minutes and have a very angry squadron of like hornets ready to just pummel the enemy into the ground. In fact, you could land the plane with yourself facing toward the ground or yourself facing toward the sky. It was also said that the plane could also maneuver its wings in such a way that it could even fly backward at lower speeds, because the propellers were able to turn, and because it had a propeller on the back of the plane and a propeller on the front of the plane, this allowed the plane to be pretty much omnidirectional. It couldn't go sideways, but it could do some wicked stuff, and this allowed it to be very, very tough. Even back during World War I and World War II, Arsenal X was looking to find ways to be able to use omnimorphic material, and it goes to show how far advanced they were even back then. Mind you, it took a great deal of training to get this craft in the hands of an expert, but once you know how to feel this plane, you are basically unstoppable and omnipotent. This was actually one of the greatest feats of Arsenal X of all time, because of the craft's durability and capabilities. Arsenal X actually still uses these because of how cheap and versatile they are. It is usually it is using a simple technology to go at hypervelocity speeds and to be effective and powerful offender on the battlefield. Arsenal X carries this plane, and carries this plane on their hearts wherever they go. The name of this plane was supposed to be called Lightning. Then they thought about turning it into the Banshee or some kind of screeching beast. But then they changed it into the Auroric Screecher because of its unusual feel that would light up when in a higher atmosphere. Arsenal X found a way to shield the fuel from lighting up in the upper atmosphere, but they often liked to show the enemy that they were coming because the enemy could do nothing to stop them. Much like a silent but flashy version of the Jericho trumpets on the Stuka dive bombers. If you somehow manage to get in touch with Arsenal X now, you can fly in the Auroric Screecher and feel the unimaginable power of the beautiful engines and watch the plane glow and leave behind a streak of a beautiful plasmic discharge that shines beautifully in the sky. The surname of the plane is actually called the Astralic Phoenix, a beautiful and magnificent beast of a plane.